Okay, great. Thanks, George. So anyway, it's great to be here. I think I've got one slide on COSIA. Dan Wicklum, my boss, is presenting later this afternoon. He has an entire presentation. I'll have to tell him that I've condensed his entire presentation into one slide. And then I think I've got a slide to kind of puts in perspective water use in the oil sands. And then certainly going to spend some time talking about some goals that we're working on for the sector and the important areas for us and what projects we're working on collaboratively. So first a bit about COSIA. So COSIA is made up of 14 member companies that comprise about 90% of the oil sands production. So the vision of COSIA is to enable responsible and sustainable growth of Canada's oil sands while delivering accelerated improvement in environmental performance through collaborative action and innovation. That's a real mouthful. The short elevator speech really is that we're all about improving the environmental performance of the oil sands. Not about the spin of it, although obviously we want to communicate the good work we're doing, but it's really about improving environmental performance through collaboration and innovation. So what's different about COSIA? Well, I've already mentioned that we pretty much have critical mass. We represent, our members represent more than 90% of oil sands production, which enables us, and in fact we're in the middle of setting goals for the sector, environmental performance improvement goals. What else is different? CEO Council. So if you want to be a member of COSIA, you actually have to be part of the CEO Council. So this is the CEOs of our founding members. And certainly there's a lot of industry associations related to the oil sands. The CEOs, vast majority of them, had never heard of any of these industry associations. So one of the differences with COSIA is these guys meet, this gang, I should say, meet every 6 weeks, and COSIA is on the agenda every 6 weeks. So they certainly have their finger on the pulse of what's going on with COSIA. Our shareholder steering committee made up of one rep from each of our member companies, and they're senior VPs or VPs of our members. So we get pretty high level interest and coverage in what we're doing. So I've mentioned this, but it's really important, is we're actually setting regional environmental performance goals. So I can't share them with you yet, but we actually have proposed some draft ones for the in situ sector. We're still working on the mining sector. Because we represent a critical mass and because our goal is to improve the environmental performance, you need to have environmental performance goals. You need to set targets for improvement, and then obviously all of our collaboration and our work together is really to achieve those targets. And I think that's a big difference, to me, a huge difference in this kind of industry association versus many others. Industry associations that cooperate, any project that's in that sphere is a good project because it may help. In our case, we're setting environmental performance improvement goals, so we're really just interested in the stuff that's going to make a difference. So we're not into stuff that's interesting and intriguing and might help. We're interested in stuff that will help. So that will really focus our project portfolio. And then the last thing that's different about COSIA is shared intellectual property. So when you join COSIA and you join one of the 4 environmental priority areas, which is the last bullet on this slide, tailings, GHGs, land and water, the admission to join is to contribute your environmental technologies in those areas. Okay, so to date, there's been about 445 contributed technologies from our 14 members. Worth about, I think the number's about $700 million, not worth, that's what it costs to develop those technologies, it's not what they're worth. And then any technology that developed going forward is shared, so whether it's done by one company, 3 companies, or all 14 of our members, each member gets free use rights in the oil sands. So that's a big difference as well. So this is true collaboration with companies that are used to competing intensely with each other and are not used to, let alone cooperate. They barely cooperate, let alone collaborate, and now we have true collaboration here. So, those are the water joint venture members, and we have 145 contributions to the water joint venture agreement worth, or at a cost of $183 million. So, some perspective. So, map of Alberta, so the oil sands region, so 87% of the water in Alberta is where 13% of the population live. And of course, conversely, in the south, 13% of the water, usually, obviously not lately, and 87% of the demand. So The oil sands are in the region where there's relatively low demand and relatively high flows of water. So you don't want to talk about the annual flow necessarily, but certainly even at the low flow, we account for only about 3% of the Athabasca. So hopefully that puts it in some perspective. So where does this water go? And believe me, the two sectors, the oil sands, is the in-situ sector and the mining sector. The challenges are quite different in those two sectors, so it's helpful to understand the differences. But in the in-situ sector, they use about half a barrel of fresh water and about half a barrel of saline water to produce a barrel of bitumen. And you can see, you get an idea of where that water is going, reservoir, boiler blowdown, process upsets, and so on. So that gives you an idea where the water losses are going on the in-situ side. On the mining side, if you want to reduce the water use intensity, which is quite a bit higher, it's about 2.5 barrels per barrel, and that's all Athabasca water. So they're not using, the only saline water you get is depressurization water. And so the vast majority of it's captured in tailings pores. And of course, we have an entire tailings group working very hard on making tailings more trafficable. To do that, you have to dewater them. That's going to release a bunch of this pore water and will, in fact, reduce that 2.5 barrels per barrel. So the vast majority of the water losses on mining are to tailings. So water area goals. Don't have a bunch of time to go over these, but we have goal areas at the moment. We haven't set these goals, but obviously perhaps these areas are not a big surprise to you. Increase recycle rates. Increasing recycle rates is a good thing, of course. Decrease use intensity. Obviously a good thing. Decrease the amount of disposal you're doing. Decrease storage. That's a big issue for mining. In situ plants really don't store much water at all. Mines can store hundreds of millions of cubes of water. Limit the use of Athabasca, the Athabasca River, I should say. And a really big challenge for both sectors, particularly mining, is managing the salt accumulation. So the challenge, and we will be going public with these environmental performance goals, and it'll be, we're going to improve the water use intensity from this to this by 2022, so it'll be specific, measurable, that kind of thing. But there's a bit of a catch to it, and that is, while we're working on these goals and driving towards improving them, what you don't want is the other environmental areas like GHG, land, and waste to go up. And believe me, given current technologies, that's typically what happens. If you push really hard on one of these areas, the other areas suffer. And I don't know what the answer is between what's worth more, a cube of water or a ton of GHGs. I don't think anybody in this room knows the answer to that. I don't think we want to answer the question. We want to improve each of these areas without detrimentally affecting the other areas.
2 minutes, John.
Perfect. Thanks, George. So really what we want to do is either move that fulcrum over as far as we can or just get rid of it. And that isn't all that simple, okay? So, projects. Clearly there isn't time to go over these in any detail, but we have a long list of projects. Some of them are really groundbreaking technologies. Some of them, like regional solutions, the Regional Water Management Initiative I mentioned, that's looking at sharing mine water with the in-situ operations. It helps the mines out and it helps the in-situ operations out. We have a long list of projects. If you see any that capture your eye, we can chat about them later. So what's next? We're going to finalize our goals and publish them. We're going to refine opportunities and gaps and look at and be very articulate with folks like you about where we need help and where we probably don't. And then we're going to revise our project portfolio and identify projects that we need to address the gaps that aren't being currently addressed, and launch new projects. So in addition to the projects you see there, later this year we'll be launching some new projects.